Now, as the housing crisis worsens, this morning we're discussing whether it's time to declare a national emergency and build more council houses. However, not everybody agrees that this should be our first step in trying to solve the problem. Some business experts believe that people living alone in large council houses should be moved into smaller properties. Joining us to discuss the proposal is Karl Deeter, who's a financial analyst from Irish Mortgage Brokers, and Dublin People Before Profit TD Brid Smith. Good morning to you both. Karl, I'll start with you because you're on the side of the proposal. First and foremost, do you acknowledge that we have a housing crisis, and do you think it should now be called a national emergency?
Yes, I've said we've had a housing crisis for many years. I think calling it a national emergency is the appropriate language to use. Calling it a national emergency is also why I feel it is justified to look at the 10,000 under-occupied homes in Dublin that are actually owned by the council. So there's 5,000 properties in Dublin across the 4 councils, where one person is living in a 2, 3, 4 and 5 bedroom home. I think it's appropriate to give those homes to families. At the same time, we've got families where you've got a mother and 3 children being pushed into a single hotel room in emergency accommodation, or where they're living in a one-bed apartment, and that's wrong. I believe that's wrong, and it's especially wrong to let someone, live in a 3-bed terrace on their own. Those situations need to be swapped out, and I feel completely correct in that.
Your proposal then is that if people are in these situations, then that they should be moved they should be downsized. But look, there's a huge shortage of smaller.
Say, where are you going to put them?
Yeah, where are you going to put them? And by the way, I've never heard of any 5-bedroom council houses. Have you?
No, well,
council do have 5-bedroom houses.
I was going to ask that question. There's very few. So be honest about the figures. How many are in 5-bedroom and how many are in 4?
Well, let's, I don't see why we even talk about 5 and 4. Let's just talk about the 3-bedroom stuff.
You mentioned it.
Oh, yeah, well, there is. Yeah, well, the numbers are all there. If you have a look at them there, you take my numbers there. I'll keep going.
I haven't got my glasses on. Will you just tell me how many, please?
There you go, Pete.
Oh, thank you.
OK, so...
I didn't realise I had them with me.
OK, 4 beds. Dublin City Council have 1,322 of them. Not exactly
with one person in them.
OK, I'm just talking about the gross numbers of them, OK? For instance, there's 239... Here, look there, you have a look at the numbers.
That's the property type.
There's about 250 houses in Dublin City Council.
Hang on a second.
You've 2 people living in a 4-bed house. They should be moved into a 2-bed house.
Okay.
The family...
Let's move off that.
Absolutely, but
I don't see why you're nitpicking.
No.
Where are you going to put them?
Do you agree?
Where are you going to put them?
Do you agree?
No,
with
I don't.
one person living in a 3-bed house when it's owned by the state?
The point about your argument is it's almost like we're going to force all these older couples.
They're not older, by the way. That's also a myth. There's loads of people who inherit tenancies.
I'm going home. There's no point in getting up early in the morning to come and talk to you. Well, then listen to me. Your argument is that we're going to force people out of the family home into one-bedroomed accommodation. Where is the accommodation and where is the choice? And I would start by saying there are hundreds of people and couples who want to move and downsize into what we call older persons units in the local authorities.
Okay,
the older persons units are not there.
I'll show you
how,
right?
They don't exist.
The people at home can't see this, but here's an example of Dublin-owned properties with 4, 5 and 6 occupants that are a 1-bed, OK? That's chronic overcrowding. At the same time, you have 118 4-bed units with 1 person in them. Swap them out.
No, you
straight away. Carl, just say, look, it's time to swap.
Well,
we have a national emergency.
Swap out the Lord Mayor and put him into one of those 1-bedroomed houses and empty the mansion house. Swap out Michael D out of Oris and Uachtaráin. You can't force people out of the family home.
But hang on a second. But if the state provides the housing...
The state provides a mansion house.
OK, well then there's a very good policy.
Put them in the mansion house. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
No, but let's stop scoring points off each other for a second. If the state owns these houses, then the state really should decide whose needs are most, shouldn't it? And
tenants
if you've got somebody...
And tenants have rights. My mother and father, for example, were tenants in the home I grew up in for 40 years. After 40 years, they bought it. But they had rights. Now, could you imagine if either or both of them were still alive and the council come along and say, out you pop into something else where they'd rear their family, where we go on a Sunday to have a dinner with them, where people gather at Christmas, where the grandparents visit them, that they're being forced out of the family home because there is a crisis created by the housing policies of successive governments.
How would your parents have reacted if they said, listen, you're in this house, it's too big for you, but we have something really nice and cosy and more manageable for you?
I imagine my parents would have looked at it, but that's my point to Karl. We don't have something really nice, local, cosy, affordable and appropriate.
Within Dublin City Council, what I'm saying is I've already shown you the numbers that we... Like, there's someone out there...
You're saying tell somebody in Ballyfermot to swap with somebody in Crumlin, or somebody in Crumlin to swap with somebody in Drimna. That isn't how it works. If you've reared your family
OK, now hang on a second, Brid.
For
He
50,
said,
60,
Karl,
70 years...
You're saying that's not what what are you saying?
OK, what I'm saying is I have some statistics showing serious overcrowding in council-owned apartments.
I'm asking what you do about it. You're just going on about statistics.
One-bed unit. These are real families. There's flesh and blood people behind these numbers.
Karl, don't you think I know? I deal with them on a daily basis. I also deal on a daily basis with older people who would love to move into
I think I'm the one who has to go. I'm never going to be able to finish my point.
Right, finish your point.
My point is, I'm showing you right here that there's about 40 examples of families of 4, 5 and 6 people living in a one-bed. That's completely immoral to push people into those situations. Well, we have 100...
Why are we not building public housing then? If I make an argument for building public housing, you'll argue against it.
Let him finish the point.
I'm still working on the same point.
Karl.
118 homes that are 4-bed homes in Dublin City Council that have 1 occupant. I'm just saying take those as a start and tell them you're swapping.
But you don't...
It's a national crisis.
You're not even considering where they are.
Because it's a national crisis.
No, if it's a national crisis...
Is it a national crisis?
It's a national crisis,
so
absolutely. We're the ones that are screaming that. But we're the ones that are saying...
But it's not to the extent that you do anything about it.
The crisis was created because there was a refusal to build public houses by successive governments.
So
now let's do it.
So just blast loads of money. Blow loads of money. Don't worry about any common sense.
It's not about blowing loads of money. We're blowing loads of money by paying private landlords to keep them in private property.
Will never make any sense.
We're blowing loads of money by keeping people in hotels and B&Bs. We're blowing nearly $1 billion a year on putting people into emergency accommodation. That's called blowing.
Why are we doing it while keeping 825 examples of a person in a 3-bed on their own?
It is possible to free up 2- and 3-bedroom houses. It is possible to free them up on the basis of choice and on the basis of
private ownership rights and public property. This is where it goes. And on the basis of providing
locally appropriate high-quality accommodation for the tenants who are vacating the properties.
Could you imagine asking... Could you imagine,
I have a case now, a woman in Harold's Cross. I'm representing a woman in Harold's Cross who's reared her family in a 2-bedroom flat. She wants to move into a 1-bedroom place, but she wants to move into a place in Harold's Cross, because that's where she's lived all her life. She's barely ever got a bus outside of Harold's Cross. She's looking for a place in Harold's Cross. She's suffering a lot of illnesses and disabilities. In fact, the woman has cancer. I am not going to argue with her. You must go to Tala
I'll give you an example of someone
she wants to live in Harold's Cross, and she will free up a 2-bedroom flat.
Of someone who's old, who's lived on a property for a very long time and has really gotten used to it. It's called the president. Is he allowed to be asked to move? Like, this is the kind of logic you're getting into. All you have to do is say, I have these feelings, therefore anything is justified. The world doesn't work that way.
Sorry, Karl.
Even the president himself, after his 14-year term, is going to have to move on.
It works that way for the landlord class, and it works that way for the very wealthy.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
It works that way for those who have money. They can do what they like. Okay. But the people who are dependent on living in
after them. We give them rent for €60 a week when someone working their nuts off next door is paying, you know,
my father was a bus driver and paid appropriate rent all his life.
My dad was a mechanic and
paid appropriate rent all his life.
I'm not going to get into some kind of
social housing for nothing.
Some kind of like your dad versus my dad. I stopped doing that when I was in 2nd class.
I'm sorry I got up this early in the morning, because what Karl is arguing is just nonsense.
Throw your toys out of the pram.
I'm not throwing toys out of the pram. I just really find your level of debate unintellectual, actually inaccurate.
Sorry, I use numbers. I know that's not your bag.
It's completely ignoring.
Well, it's descending into personal insults at this stage, so we'll draw a veil over it. Thank you both very much indeed. Still to come this morning, one of Ireland's best-loved comedians, Neil Delamere, will be here to chat about being back on the road with his new stand-up tour, Controlled Substance. That's at 8:15.
Really, Karl,